Welcome to another episode of Moonshots. This is the place where you find the ideas and inspirations to take you to the next level. The things that you never thought was possible, this is where you come to make them happen. And this episode, as you know, is absolutely no exceptions. And this time I'm going to bring you Adam, who is going to tell us about who Adam is and what is his moonshot.
Well, I want to find out more about you.
Well, we'll get to that point.
Moonshots. That's
First, tell us, who is Adam?
Well, I am an entrepreneur. I kind of 16 years old. I decided I was going to be an entrepreneur, not take a job, and so I started my first company at 19 on my own, a communications company, and basically got my feet wet in the entrepreneur world, and from there I just kept creating more and more and more companies.
So give us a journey. So you're 19 now, you created a company. What happened to it, and then what happens next?
Yeah, 19. I've always been interested in finance, stock market. Not that I've invested much in it, but I've always been interested in the process, how it works, how it really affects things, how it really affects people. Mm-hmm. And I'm a small town guy, so I was a Main Street guy too. Maybe that's where that came from, So I was watching the deregulation of AT&T and the Ma Bell companies. Yeah. And I saw an opportunity. Mm-hmm. I could go in and I could get into the PBX system and the pay telephone system and the credit card and the operator services business, and that's what I did. Okay. And within 2 years, I had become the second largest to Ameritech in Michigan. Okay. And then I moved into Ohio and Pennsylvania and New York, and then I sold the company. Okay. Because basically I saw cell phones coming and things were changing. So out of that, everything that I've done in with respect to that.
So have you just always been finance? I thought you also did some music and things.
Well, yeah, and this will come. Yeah. So I saw this, basically what encouraged me to get into the communications business was something very simple. Yeah. Dirty payphones. So you'd pull up to a payphone when you didn't have cells in the 90s, and you'd say, I really got to make a call, but that looks really bad. So I said, how can I improve the standard and the experience in making a phone call? Mm-hmm. And so that's what intrigued me, and that's what's intrigued me to get into everything. I got into the music business because I was a musician when I was little.
Tell us about music business.
Yeah, I was a musician. I was in a band for several years, and I would play in places that were really of low standard. Mm-hmm. And I said, why is it this way? Why is everything so dirty? Why are the bathrooms so dirty? Why is the green room so dirty? Why is the couch so dirty? Why does it look like everyone doesn't care? Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm going to get into the music business. I'm going to build venues that are respectable, that when a musician comes here, I can get a high-priced musician for less because of the experience I'm providing them.
Very nice.
So that's really what caused me to do everything that I've done. I'm in the media business now for the same reason.
So what's the business now?
Well, I really saw a lot of people getting piecemeal services from different media companies, and they wouldn't always benefit them the way they should because everything was fragmented. Everything was done okay. You need everything to be done great so you can create something great. If you have a weak link, it's going to fall apart at some point. So my journey was started because I wanted to improve upon something. Okay. I wasn't a genius coming up with a new idea necessarily, but most people just won't put in the work it takes to make something better.
So if everything, you look at your life, what is your moonshot?
My moonshot is probably, I listen to you and I see, solve a problem and you'll make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. And I think my moonshot would be if everything that I touch, I achieve that, I think I'll have fulfillment because I have fulfillment on the things that I've done so far. I'm not full yet. Mm-hmm. So I'm always searching for the next problem to solve. It might be a dirty payphone. Mm-hmm. It might be a dirty music venue. In your case, it might be, why people are having trouble reaching their goals with their health. Mm-hmm. So I think mine's very similar to yours.
Okay. So there's so many people who have these bright ideas. They have these dreams. And sometimes the dreams are just making something better. They don't have to be fundamentally new things that's going to change the way people live, but they're going to change the way people experience how they live. So how do they go about executing on those dreams? Because it's not just easy. You just say, okay, I'm going to go do it. And somehow magically you sprinkle the fairy dust and it happens. So how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, I think here's the biggest problem is sometimes it could be something as simple. Say someone has a moonshot. They look at the moonshot.
Yeah.
They have no idea how to reach the moonshot.
That's right.
So they get overwhelmed and they give up.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be something as simple as finding the right people to lead you down the path. Maybe, for instance, say you need marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get any traction. No one's going to know about you. No one's going to know about your idea unless you get it out there and in a way that people will actually engage with you. So you'll have a marketing media company come to this person and say, well, you're here and you need to go all the way here. Otherwise, you might as well not even try. The way I approach it, we look at what's available, what budget do you have, this, and then we lay out a timeline for them. And we don't say, if you don't do this, you're never going to make it. Let's start small, every single step along the way. Take the first step, and you'll figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
You don't know today if you're going to get an investor to come in, and then you can leapfrog very quickly. So the problem that I see is a lot of people look at things as in big bites, and they feel like they can't take it. So I think the best advice that I could give is just every step counts, and take small steps. You're comfortable with that. Don't get comfortable. I'm saying get comfortable with the idea of taking an uncomfortable step.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
So if you're comfortable where you are, you will never make a change.
That's right.
But you got to be comfortable that I'm going to take a next step without knowing how that next step is going to land.
Right.
And once you land, then you take the next step into the unknown.
Right. But if the step is so big, you won't move at all.
Okay.
So they have to get real in their minds and understand that it is a process.
So walk me through the one of your venture. How did you go about taking those steps? Because they may be some learning lessons that someone who's listening to it will say, that's me.
Yeah, every single, I've never done any one thing consistently. Everything that I've done has been completely different from the last thing that I've done.
And why would that be?
I think not because... I guess I'm an adventurous. I'm not going to say I get bored. I don't get bored. I just get restless. And so everything that I do, I take a page from your book in a sense where, a non-expert.
Yeah.
But make sure you have something to back that up.
Sure.
Whether it's hard work or just a relentless pursuit to see this thing through. That's when then I agree that works. Otherwise, a non-expert could be disruptive in the wrong way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So talk about the music business, because that's just interesting, because not very many people you're going to get on this episode talk about music.
Yeah.
So what were you playing as a musician? How did you go about building this venue? Because most people who are artists rarely have a business sense to go out and create a business. And here you're an artist who created a great business. So tell me more about that.
It's interesting. I went into the music. I learned guitar for the same reason, because I wanted to do it differently. I had friends. I always hung around with people that were older than me, 2-3 years older than me, and
that must be harder to find now.
Well, now you're so yeah. I just caught that, by the way. No, actually, no. But anyway, I would do this, and now you threw me off, because that was a good one. That was a real good one. You have to edit that out, okay? I never thought of it. Maybe that's why I don't have any friends. So anyway, let me get back on track here. So I learned guitar because I hung around other people that did it, and it seemed like they were always going down a dark road. And I never got into the drugs. I never got into cigarettes. I never got into alcohol. Never did anything.
You're telling me, as a musician, you never did no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes, no nothing. Really?
Is that interesting?
Clean magician.
Isn't it? And I was a disruptor before I knew I was.
Okay.
And so I remember a guy offering me a pill once.
Yeah.
And I remember the guy's name, Phil. I won't say his last name because it stood out in my mind.
Yeah.
He says, "Hey, he said, I have these things. You want to try them?" And I said, "Well, what is it?"
Yeah.
He said, "Well, just try it." And I said, "Well, how much does it cost?"
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, they're like $5 for a hit of this stuff." And I said, "Well, can I have the $5?
Yeah.
I said that. He said, well, no. I said, well, you're going to give me that. Why wouldn't you just give me the money? I'd rather go buy something I want.
Yeah.
And it turns out is they don't want to go down the road alone. It's a dark road. They don't want to go down it alone. So I learned from these things, and I said, I don't think that a guitar player has to do that. If you're a musician, you don't have to destroy your life at the same time. So I put a band of like-minded people that were clean, people that would shake your hand firmly, and they were committed to other people that weren't just in it for the party or the thrill of it all. And I said, I'm going to build a band that's professional. And so I didn't. Didn't work out because bands usually don't. But we had some fun. And one day I remember we were in rehearsal and I just said, guys, if you're not going to do this better, I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. So then I decided not to be the guy that's on stage. I said, I'm going to put musicians in an environment where they can feel better about their situation. So then I decided, and everyone thought I was crazy, you cannot bring a headliner that charges you $100,000 to play in a 300-seat theater. And build the theaters too. Why would you? No one will invest in a 300-seat theater because there's no market for it. Even the agents said we won't do it. So I got people like Eddie Money, rest his soul, he just passed away. But Eddie Money was a headliner at the time when I was doing it, and his agent said point blank no, we're not going to put him in that theater because it's going to bring his brand down. I says actually it won't. And she says, and you won't sell it out on a holiday weekend. And I says, well, I will sell it on a holiday weekend. She says, why? I said, because I'm in a holiday weekend town. Yeah. So here I am teaching someone at William Morris Agency the ropes, which I was pretty proud of. All of a sudden, I have very great success with Eddie Money. And then I see her booking him in venues all around me on holiday weekends, which they'd never done before. So it was basically providing a new way of doing things, a new look at it, a new environment for the musicians. And then I started getting a following. The musicians loved me because they said, when we go to his places, we know what to expect. We're treated like kings.
Very nice.
And so it's all about making life better for people. My motivation for myself is I don't want to go through life accepting what is. Yeah. I want a better experience. So if I create that experience, then everyone else benefits from that too.
So what does Adam like and what does Adam dislike? So what is Adam going to disrupt next?
Anything that's unacceptable, to my standards, because I don't think that I'm a prude or anything. I just think that I think everyone would enjoy things better in their life. Would you agree with that?
Of course.
Does anyone say, I want it to be worse?
No, nobody does.
So I don't know what that thing will be. It will be something that will get my attention. Yeah. And the passion will ignite. Yeah. And I'll seize the opportunity. So
obviously you are just started out this new business for yourself, which is in the media business.
Well, this business is actually 15 years old.
You have to be kidding.
Yeah, I was in the media business when I was doing all of the concert promotion and producing because I was one of the first people to go up against Ticketmaster and not pass those $17 fees on to my patrons. I said, I'm going to sell my tickets through email marketing and social media. I was one of the first people to do that in the 90s.
And the next thing you're going to tell me, you also do Bitcoins.
Well, and I created the internet, me and Al Gore. Yeah, and that's another thing. I was opening restaurants in 2009, and I watched the Kaiser Report. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It was a kind of a offbeat news cast that it's put on by Max Kaiser. He was a former stock trader in New York Stock Exchange. Uh-huh. He created the Hollywood Stock Exchange to trade movie shares and that kind of thing. So he left the business because he saw it for what it was. Mm-hmm. And then he started a news podcast. Now, it wouldn't have been a podcast when he started it, but now it's a podcast. Anyway, I follow that. And I learned about Bitcoin in 2009 when it was pennies. And I, like everybody else, waited. And I waited. But I only waited to 2011. So I still got it at a really good price.
So like $5, $6.
I've paid from 7 up to 100 because I've done some trading back and forth. Yeah. Then I when Bitcoin went to 20,000, I sold some and bought a bunch of Litecoin. Yes. At the low 50, and it went to 400. I sold some of that, and then when it went back down, I bought some more of it. So now it's right around $7 or $8.
So you starting in finance, you have never been able to take that out of your DNA. You love trading, don't you?
Well, it's not that. I love disruption. I love what I like most is when, what did the internet replace? In offices, for instance. Let's just say in offices. You don't see file cabinets, you don't see fax machines, you don't see a lot of things that you used to see. What has currency? What will Bitcoin replace? Bitcoin it has to replace the internet to the file cabinet is is basically Bitcoin to the dollar. There has to be a better way to do this. And as long as the dollar is in control of the big banks and they can control the people, they control the currency. Bitcoin changes things.
Why?
Well, because it's peer-to-peer. It's between you and I. We decide the value. There's no third party. There's no third-party fees as there is with the dollar. If you want to transfer Western Union, send $1 million, it's going to be very costly to do that, and it's going to take several days. Bitcoin you can do within an hour. The cost is much lower, and it's coming down now that the blockchain is adjusting and Lightning Network's in place. There's a lot of things happening to make Bitcoin more usable. I believe, and a lot of people disagree with me, I don't think Bitcoin is going to be the thing we use, though, to trade. I think it'll be a store of value that we use payment systems around. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
So Bitcoin would be the store of value, and then there'll be all these apps that you use, and the Bitcoin does nothing but back up those payment systems. I think that's what it will end up being. And that's the way the banks should look at it now. They should not, they say they're adopting it one day and the next day they're not because it threatens their position where they're at, the control they have now. So it's not that I've been in finance. I've been very interested in change.
So if Bitcoin simply becomes a stored currency, then why would it go up?
Well, because of the finite value, the
Sure.
amount. I mean, basically, you've got almost 8 billion people.
So, but you can't have a stored value that fluctuates so much in value.
Well, the stock market fluctuates.
But the stock market is not a stored value.
Well, the dollar fluctuates.
Very little.
Gold fluctuates.
Very little. In the
Well,
last 2 years.
Yeah, but in the big scheme of things, it really does.
Okay.
It does because of the number of people that hold it.
Sure.
So really, Bitcoin is so new. There's no reason why it wouldn't fluctuate right now. People are going to believe in it, and they're not going to believe it. That's going to cause it to go up and down. But I mean, I don't want to get too deep into
Sure.
the finance side of things. But if the dollar collapses
Sure.
because of QE and zero interest rates, and now you stop believing in it as a world currency, that's kind of the same thing, really.
Kind of. If dollar collapses and the whole world currency collapses, they will have nothing to buy anything anyway. So why Bitcoin?
Well, I don't think but I don't think it will be the whole world will collapse. I think the dollar will lose world currency status.
So let's move on to a different subject.
Yeah, that's the
so
com-
here
that's
we are.
complicated.
We talked about the music and we talked about the media. We talked about the Bitcoin. Where does Adam go next?
Again, I'm always looking for something that needs to be improved upon.
So what is? Do you think the cell phones? What do you think of the cell phones? Do you think that Apple got it right, or Apple is now kind of incremental business and not going to get anywhere, and there is a chance to improve on it?
Yeah, I think they're running out of ideas. I think they've gotten a little bit complacent.
So
with
what
their
would you
position. do? I think that there's technology already out there that's being, as you would know this as well as anybody, that's being held back because they want to get all they can out of the technology.
So what
that they
would you
put
do?
out.
You think the next thing is going to be AR that doesn't require any augmented reality that doesn't require any screen? And once you have augmented reality, you won't need the 2D phones or TVs or anything is right in front of you anytime you need, any size screen you need.
Yeah, I think the next logical thing is holograms and the like.
Yeah.
And your phone will be something that basically
Virtual.
is in your hand, but you don't feel it.
Yeah, it's virtual.
And I think that technology exists already. But I think the way capitalism works in this country and around the world, China, whatever, because China's us, not really, is they get as much as they possibly can out of something before they release something new. Because why wouldn't they, right?
So here you are, a Midwestern guy, talking about technology and disruption and move to West Coast. Do you look back and saying, what would have happened if you stayed back there? And what's the advice to you for other people who feel they are in an environment in the Midwest where they're just not surrounded by the technology and disruptor? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I guess is don't waste a lot of time, because I think back to it now and it scares me a little bit about the amount of my time that I wasted, thinking that I could introduce. I was the kind of guy that, like, everyone would say, why are you doing that here? Why aren't you somewhere where people would embrace this?
Mm-hmm.
And I would always say, well, I want to offer something to people.
Mm-hmm.
I want to maybe speed up the clock for people in their lives. So I when I was in the Midwest, I was always saying, I got to go where the action is.
And where is the action?
Well, for me, Bellevue. It was one of those places that when you look at a map, it stands out. There's some real things happening here. And so
For the people who are listening to Bellevue, the Bellevue in Washington, not the
Washington,
Bellevue in New York, which is a mental hospital.
well, yeah, they're thinking, but they're thinking about different things. They're creative too, but
Okay.
not necessarily in a controlled way. So I really think that when I look back on the Midwest, and it's a little bit alarming because I know what's happening there, and it's kind of sad what's happening there because everyone's kind of stuck in that because they don't know any different. They can't think outside the
Why
box.
don't you just talk to them and explain to them?
I
hey,
tried.
No. I'm saying, like, here is your chance. People who are listening to you, this podcast, talk to them and say, hey, you're in Midwest. I was there. Here is what you are feeling. Here's what you can do.
And I want to be real with people too, and I understand this is the thing that keeps me from maybe telling someone something that maybe isn't for them. The Midwest is a different kind of place.
Tell me more.
It's generational.
Okay.
Things don't happen midstream.
Okay.
There has to be, it actually takes a full generation for people to even begin to think differently about anything. I mean, people still think that the $40 an hour auto jobs are going to come back. So,
And they're not?
no, they're not. Absolutely, they're not. And you got the union on strike like they used to do in the 80s. I said, you can't go on strike right now. Everything's it's not the way it was.
But they just did. They just,
I know, but what the outcome I don't think is going to be good for anybody.
really?
I really don't think it's going to be good for anybody because, first of all, when General Motors went bankrupt, their business model changed. Do you think they're going to go back on that? No, they'll automate more. When the more unruly the people get, the more they'll automate. That's just a fact of life.
Mm-hmm.
You think of companies, it's kind of like, I hate to say it, but the caring factor has lessened in the corporate world because of technology.
Is it the caring factor, or it is just world has really become global and flat in some sense that the geographies that people used to be limited to are no longer relevant? You could build anywhere, you could ship anywhere, you could use anywhere, right? And that changes everything.
It does, and I think it's because of technology,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's the driving factor here. And I would be careful on how hard I push, if I were a union member, for instance, on the company that I work for because of technology.
You're going against the union. I mean, I hope you don't have a death wish.
What's that?
You don't have a death wish or something.
Well, no, I mean, the union's really becoming insignificant anyway. I mean, it's much smaller than it used to be.
Don't you have a home in Midwest? You don't want to be egged on?
No, I mean, no, I'm not. I don't think they watch podcasts there. They're still watching, antenna TV with the rabbit ears, I think. I mean, I'm serious.
I know you're really a disruptor. I hope you don't have any plans to go back to
And this is why I do this, because I won't go back then. I can't. But I really believe that there should be, people have to get smarter about it. Yeah. Unions have to get smarter about it. I feel unions use the people, the members, to push their own agenda, and I don't think they really care about their members.
That, to me, I think is really the crux of the issue is, does union really care about themselves, or do they care about their members? Right. Sometimes these things start with absolutely the right purpose, right? But for union, we would still have the worker safety won't be there. There's so many good things that came out of it. But, these organisms at times, these entities become organisms where the survival of the organism is the only thing that matters, and the purpose goes out the windows. And I won't be surprised if this entity called union, their purpose they have outlived the purpose, because we live in this thing where there's so much mobility. People can move anywhere. They don't like the place they are at. They can go 10 places. In fact, I wonder, same thing that happens in the technology industry. I don't take care of my employees. They walk right out in front of my eyes and say, I'm going across the street and I'm going to get a new job. And I am the one who has to get on my knees and ask them, please don't leave. What can I do to take care of you? And my point is, isn't that the right way of doing it? Take care of your employees so well that they're not willing to leave. And when you don't take care of them, they leave. Where is the need for the union?
Yeah, I think today people want a place where, a culture where you create an environment where they want to be there. People want fulfillment.
Yes.
More than everyone needs to earn money.
Of course.
But I think if they traded a few dollars for fulfillment, I think most people would take the fulfillment side. And at the unions, I believe, I think it's a bygone entity that's hanging on by a thread. And I mean, look at the size of it now. I mean, it's only 49,000 members. There's 100,000 strong in the day. So it's less than half of what it was. So I truly believe that it only works in certain parts of the country too. Mm-hmm. The Midwest is a good place because people haven't evolved, in their thinking as much there because I remember, this is what told me the tale of the union. I was probably 25 years old and I was up north in Michigan snowmobiling with a bunch of, rednecks basically. Because I always would try to experience everything in my life. I wasn't a snowmobiling redneck, but I says, well, let me go buy a real expensive snowmobile and show them how it's done, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So they're all sitting around a campfire, 1:00 in the morning, cheering their Bud Lights and their Pabst Blue Ribbons, and they're saying, I'm punched in right now. And I'm just standing back listening to these guys. And there were 3 guys that worked for General Motors that were punched in. And I'm thinking, well, how are you guys punched in right now, making $40 an hour as a forklift operator? Yeah. Well, our buddy punches us in, and then when he wants to go somewhere, we punch him in. I said, how is this going to work in the long run? I said, first of all, you're probably someday going to lose your job. Mm-hmm. And I ended up being the guy that, all of a sudden I'm snowmobiling by myself because I've always been of that mindset. I said, look at the bigger picture, guys. So now these guys are probably making $15 an hour, or if they have a job. So this is what worries me about the union mentality.
So here we are. We talked about all this industry. Let's talk about politics. We've never talked about politics in this podcast. Yeah. So let's go down that road. What's happening in our world right now?
Well, it's first of all, make clear I'm not of any party affiliation.
Okay.
I'm always looking for the right person.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I think, well, if the right person gets in there, they're going to be destroyed within minutes. Mm-hmm. Because I think you need to be a wrong person to be in politics in the first place because it's such a cutthroat business, if you want. It is business. So in politics right now, I just think the divide and conquer is working. I think politics is working at its best right now.
So you're looking at both sides here. Both of them are trying to divide and conquer.
They always have. That's why there's 2 parties. I mean, I believe that I take that back. There's 2 parties, but it actually is 1 party. It's a dog and pony show. They're all trying to protect their club that we're not in. We're funding their club. And all that they're doing is they have to play back and forth. So if you divide and conquer people, what do? You weaken people, right? If they're all together, that's when they could get something done. So I just feel politics is working probably at its finest right now.
And you are happy about it?
No, I'm not at all, because I see a lot of dishonesty going on, just telling people things that aren't true, just to keep their, car going down the road. Politicians.
What do you think of Joe Biden?
I don't really think of him, only because I think Joe's been in it so long that it's what would change.
How about Elizabeth Warren?
I think that I don't know, man. I mean, with Elizabeth, I just think that there's nothing. They're not solving any problems. I don't hear anything that can change things significantly.
She has a plan for everything. She's like an iPhone app.
Well, I think that she's just a talking head. I mean, really, she's listening to the people around her, and I don't see anyone solving any problems, including Trump. No one's solving any problems right now. You don't run a business by borrowing money. You just don't do it.
So what would you do?
You ever listen to Peter Schiff?
Sure, I'm listening right now. Talk to me.
Well, it's kind of like capitalism works. It'll function if you allow it to. In other words, every 10 years we have a cycle. Mm-hmm. Capitalism works when someone that's not doing such a good job and is making a ton of money, not doing such a good job, they have to be allowed to fail.
Yes, that is correct.
You can't buy them out.
You cannot save them.
Yeah.
Capitalism, the minute you start to save the companies that have failed, is the day that capitalism dies.
And it started with the bank bailout.
Yes, of course. Okay, wrong thing to do.
They all had bad businesses.
Yes.
They all had derivative models that were
They
failures.
should have all allowed them to fail.
They should have failed. So that's caused our this cycle not to happen. I think we're in the most dangerous financial point in history right now, because we've never had this debt. They think the answer, we can go to 40 trillion, go to 100 trillion. It doesn't matter. Why did it matter at one time and it doesn't matter now?
Well, it does, because sooner or later when people don't start believing in the dollar, nobody's going to loan us the money. And then what? And then suddenly the dollar collapses, the economy collapses, and we may not have the jobs, we may not have the businesses. And we don't want our children and grandchildren to see that, right? So let's move on from the topic of politics now. Let's go back to the technology, the ideas, the inspiration that people can do. So here they are, people listening to it, and we're just going bantering back and forth. Let's bring it back home now, right? Mm-hmm. When people who are listening to it, what would be your advice to these people to do?
Well, the main thing is don't rely on what you've done to get you where you want to go in life, because things are changing. We talked about the Midwest. Things are changing so radically there right now. And, first they accepted the lower wages. They accepted and they adjusted their lifestyles accordingly. But that's gonna further erode. You've got to evolve at some point. So I would say embrace technology, embrace the things around you. Rather than go on strike, understand why the company is doing what they're doing. Try to be a problem solver instead of a problem creator. And that's what the union does for GM right now. It's just going to exacerbate the problems. It's not going to change anything. So I would say just get on board with the future. Get on board with technology, and embrace it rather than say, "Oh, Amazon's putting everyone out of business. Amazon's making your life convenient." Embrace that.
Well, as we get to the end of it, would you look right into the audience and tell them what is the advice you would give them as you part ways?
Well, the best thing that I could offer up, I would say, is don't necessarily accept things as people would want you to see them. Look beyond, dig deeper. I see too many people when they hear everything's great. Okay, then everything's great in my life, so I can just keep doing what I'm doing. Look deeper, scratch the surface. Whether it's politics, whether it's what someone might be saying about technology, look at both sides of everything. Don't discount one because you're with that tribe. Look at all the tribes. Understand why they're doing what they're doing. Look, take a bigger picture, and then I think it'll benefit people much more, because then you won't get stuck in a particular tribe or position or opinion or state of mind. Don't do that to yourself. Keep an open mind and look at all sides.
Well, Adam, this has been an absolute pleasure to discuss so many different wide variety of subjects.
Yeah, so we could have spent more time on each one of those.
Well, guess what? We're going to have another opportunity to get together again. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You have an amazing guest.
Thank you.